All right, let's get started on the new lesson. Happy Friday. So our last lesson in this chapter is lesson 7. So we're in chapter 5, lesson 7, graph on the coordinate plane. Okay, so make sure you have that title written in your notes. And remember, we are taking focus notes. So we've got the questions on this side and we've got the notes on this side. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to graph an ordered pair on a coordinate plane, okay? Also, if you have this nearby, this might really help you. So we took these notes today in class, okay? They have the coordinate plane on there, the ordered pair, the y and x-axis, quadrants. Okay, so it has a bunch of definitions in here for you and examples of what those definitions look like. If you didn't finish your notes, I have them posted onto Canvas. Let's get started on the notes. If you need a pause so that your notes look exactly like this to start, go ahead and do so. On your notes, make sure you have this coordinate plane already written out, and I'm going to add to it. So I'm going to put x-axis over here and y-axis here. Okay, and I'm going to remember that everything from this 0 here is going to be negative, and everything from this 0 here is going to be positive. That's one of the things we did today in our notes. And anything on the y-axis from the 0 to this point will be positive. Anything from the 0 to down here will be negative. Okay? That'll just help us remember our positives and negatives, where they need to go. Okay, so our first notes is going to be ordered pairs. So let me cover that a little bit. So I wrote something on here earlier. So go ahead and write down ordered pair, and go ahead and highlight it or underline it. Make sure it's bold because this is an important idea. Okay, so this is one of our main ideas. The ordered pair is going to be in the form of x, y, which means we're going to write our x coordinate first and then our y coordinate. That's always true. Okay, so you'll never want to write it any other way except for x, comma, y. And we have those ordered pairs in parentheses. The x coordinate, cover that up too. The x coordinate you're going to find from the x-axis. So the farther right you go, you're going to have a positive value. The farther left you go, you'll probably have a negative value. So on this side, we would have negatives, this side positives. Same with the y. The y coordinate you would get from the y-axis. So we would look over here for our y coordinate. A lot of this so far will hopefully be a review for you because we did some of it in class. But a review is always good. So knowing how to identify our ordered pairs and knowing what they look like will help us when we're graphing on the coordinate plane. So first we need to graph point A. Okay, so now we're all caught up in notes. I'm going to start writing things down as well. Don't forget you can pause the video to go at your own pace if you need to. So let's graph point A. Our ordered pair that was given was 9 and negative 4. So our x coordinate is 9. So I'll just put x equals 9, and our y coordinate is negative 4. Okay, so and before we get started on graphing, we actually have to put values, integers, or rational numbers on our coordinate plane. So in class, we've tried a few different ways of how to count on the number line. Just so you know, for your bit of information, you could count by ones if you want. So mine's on grid paper. I could count by ones everywhere I see a blue line. I could count by 2s, 3s, 4s. So how that would look, if I'm counting by 3s, this first tick mark would be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and then over here I would have -3, -6, -9, -12, and so on. I would count the same on the y-axis, so I would count -3, -6, -9, -12, or sorry, these need to be positive, so 3, 6, 9, 12, and then on this side I would have the negatives, so -3, -6, -9, and so on. Sorry for my error in the beginning. Okay. I could also count by 0.5s. So 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. For today's lesson, I think I'm just going to count by 2s though. Okay, and you, on your paper, please count by 2s as well so that we're writing down the same things. Okay, so I counted by 2s on my x-axis for the positive and the negative side. Now I'm going to count by 2s on my y-axis. So -2, -4, -6, -8, -10, -12, -14, -16. So I'm using each square, each of the blue lines, to tell me when to count another 2 so that they're evenly spaced apart. So if you are working on regular paper with no grid lines on it, then make sure that your tick marks here, your lines, are evenly spaced out, okay? That way we have an equal distance between each mark. Six, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Okay. So now our coordinate plane is all set. It's ready to go. We can now graph on it. So we have to graph point A at 9 for our x and -4 for our y. So we use a blue pen. When we are looking at graphing, we're going to start at the origin. So the origin is at 0, 0. This is also on the notes that we took today. So counting from the origin at 0, 0, I'm going to count to the left 4 units, okay, because, I'm going to count to the right 9 units because our x is at 9, okay, so I'm going to count 4 units, and 4 units is different than saying, 9 units is different than saying 9 squares, okay, because each of these tick marks are 2, so that means if I'm counting from 0 to 2, that's 2 units. And I need to get to 9. So from 0, I'm going to count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And 10 is too many, so I'm going to go right in the middle of 8 and 10. That's where 9 would be. Okay, so I know 9 is going to be right here, and then I have to count down 4 units. Okay, so I'm going to count down 4 units. So -2, -4. That's down 4 units. So point A is going to be right here, and I'm going to label it. We always have to label our points, okay? So this was telling me to graph point A, and I did, and I labeled it point A. That way we don't get confused later on when we're trying to graph another point. So again, from 0, 0, I went to the right 9 units, okay? So that got me right here. And then I went down 4 units right here, okay? So you're always going to go start at the origin and either go right or left. If it's negative, you're going to go left. If it's positive, you're going to go right. That's for the x-axis. On the y-axis, if it's positive, you'll go up. If it's positive, you'll go down. Okay, and on a test, if you are wanting to show your work for this, all you have to do is show your line. So I would show a little line here, draw it from the origin to 9 and then down. That's showing my work, okay? All right, now let's graph point B. And point B we will make at -4 and -4. Okay, so we're graphing point B at -4, -4, which means our x is -4 and our y is -4. Okay, so starting from the origin, I'm going to count to the left 4 units because it's negative. So 2, 4. So I'm at -4. Okay, I'm also going to count another 4 units down. So 2, 4. I went 4 units down. So my point B is going to be right here. And I'll label my point. Okay. Now that you have it labeled, and don't forget to start from this point, okay, we are going to learn how to reflect now. So a little bit in lesson 6 was showing us how to reflect points across the y-axis or the x-axis. Today, we're going to reflect one of the points across probably the x or y-axis, and then make a shape out of it, all right? So let us reflect point B. So reflect B across the x-axis. Okay, so point B is right here. We have to reflect that across the x-axis. And when we're reflecting across the x-axis, that means we're going to treat this x-axis like a mirror, okay? So if we're treating it like a mirror and point B is right here, then we should see the reflected point of B on this side somewhere. Okay, so if my pointer finger is at B. So what I'm going to do is turn my hand over, and I should see that my pointer finger is somewhere around here. So imagine that you're like flipping this page over when you're reflecting, okay? So I don't know if you can kind of see the points over here, but imagine when you're reflecting it, you're like turning this over. And so when I'm reflecting point B, I'm going to turn it over. So it'll be equal distance from the x-axis, okay? So B over here is 4 units away from the x-axis. So on the opposite side, I want to make sure that it's also 4 units away, and it's still going to be on the -4 x coordinate, okay? So then my new reflected point will be here, and I'm going to call it point C. So we don't get confused, I'm going to call it point C. Okay, and we'll see that here. So reflect B across the x-axis to make point C. Okay, so think of the reflective point as the opposite. So just like we were talking about on the number line when we were just learning number lines in lessons 1, 2, and 3. If we're looking at 4 and we're wondering what the opposite is, the opposite of 4 is going to be -4. Because -4 is an equal distance away from the 0 as 4 is. Okay, so you're going to be looking at the same thing. Just imagine the x-axis as the 0 marker. Okay, and I'm doing bunny ears because we're just imagining it as the 0. Okay, so B is 4 units away from the x-axis, so the reflective point needs to also be 4 units away. All right, now that we've made our reflective point, what we're going to do is connect A, B, and C, and we're going to see what shape it makes. So, connect points A, B, and C. Okay, and then we'll see what shape does it make. So over here I wrote, what shape do you see? All right, I'm going to use my ruler to connect those points. So first I'm going to connect points B and C. Then I'm going to connect points A and B. Okay, and now I need to also connect points A and C. Okay, by doing that, you might notice that I just made a triangle. So the shape that you see is a triangle. Okay. All right, so now let's graph a couple other points, and we're going to connect this one to it's either lesson 3 or 4, but we're going to connect it to absolute value, okay? So we're going to graph, I'll actually do it in blue, graph point D at, let's do 12, negative 11. Okay, so we're going to graph point D at 12, negative 11. Okay, so again, I'm at the origin, and our x-coordinate is 12, so I need to count, since it's positive, I'm going to count to the right 12. I'm going to move that down so you can see a little better. So I'm at the origin, I'm going to count to the right 12, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then my y is negative 11, the y-coordinate negative 11, so I need to count down 11 units. So if I'm here, I'm going to count negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, negative 8, negative 10, and I just need to go one more. So that's going to be right in the middle of negative 10 and negative 12, and I'll get negative 11. Okay, so that's my point D. I'm going to label that. And now I also want to graph, graph. We're going to make a reflective point again. So we are going to reflect D across the y-axis to make F. Reflect D across y-axis to make F. Okay, so we just talked about how to reflect a point across the x-axis. Now let's talk about how to reflect a point across the y-axis. So think of the y-axis as a mirror, okay? So if this is my mirror, okay, I'm going to see whatever D is, I'm going to see D on the other side, okay? So it's going to be equal distance. So D is 12 units from the y-axis, right? If we counted, it would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 units away. So on this side, I need to count 12 units away in the opposite direction. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So it's going to be right over here. Let me mark that. Okay, and here I'm going to have F. All right, so don't forget that D is on this side. Pretend you're turning it and folding it over to get F. Okay, so if we turn this, and my paper would turn, then we would be at F. All right. So now that we've made points D and F is the reflective point of D, okay, let's find the distance. So let's find the distance between F and D. Okay, and remember, distance is just going to be the absolute value. Remember we talked about that? So let's write that here. Distance can be another way to describe absolute value. So I'm going to make a line between F and D. Okay, so I need to find that distance between F and D. I can just count on the number line, so I could count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then keep going. 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, and 24. So you could do that, okay? So I'm going to count. This is 12 units away from the x-axis, or from the y-axis, and this is also 12 units away from the y-axis. Okay, so if I added those together, I would get 24 units. Don't get confused because this is on the negative side. Remember, we're just thinking about the absolute value, which is positive. Okay, so I'll put a little positive sign here. So if I were to put this in some form of a problem for you to solve, it would look something like this. The absolute value of this distance, okay, so the absolute value from negative 12 to 0, so that if we put negative 12 there, just to see what we would get in our absolute value, and then 12 over here because it's positive, okay, this number is going to come out positive, remember? So we're going to have 12, and this number is going to come out positive. So 12 plus 12 will give us 24. Okay, so two different ways you can do it, and this is where we bring in absolute value. So we're just looking for the distance, 12 and 12. Distance is 24, sorry, just to make that clear. The distance between F and D is 24 units. All right, so in your math book, the very last thing I want you to do is try the got it problems. So go ahead and try the got it problems. They are on page 404 and 405. Check your own understanding, okay? So we just went over those notes. Check your understanding. I put the answers for the got it problems. So if you want to maybe pause and then try it and then check the answers, go ahead and do so. Here are the answers. Okay, this is what I did. And this is the other one. Hopefully you can see that. All right. So have a great weekend. I hope you took great notes, and I'll see you on Monday.